On February 22, 1976, the torment ends. Florence is found dead of a heart attack. A devastated Diana flies to Detroit to attend the funeral.
The two, Supremes stood there looking down in the coffin at Florence. I mean, and there were probably no words to express the sadness that they both felt at what had occurred, yet they never spoke to each other.
Though a celebrity, everyone ages, and some may even be forgotten. But certain names vanish not because of time, but because the world callously discards them. Florence Ballard, the founder of the Supremes, once stood in the spotlight, only to be abruptly cast into a dark abyss. Why did a legendary voice die alone in a run-down Detroit home? Who drove her to the edge? And why is the glamorous mansion she once dreamed of now just a pile of dusty rubble? Behind those million-dollar hits lies a pain no one wants to acknowledge. Debt, alcoholism, despair, and a cold, lonely death. Florence Ballard's life is a brutal slap in the face of what we call glory. Think you know her story? Trust me, you don't know the half of it. On June 30th, 1943, in a rotting wooden house in Detroit's Brewster Douglas slums, a baby's cry pierced the stifling night. Florence Glenda Ballard was born, the 8th of 13 siblings, a faint spark in the darkness of poverty. The house, with its mold-streaked walls and the pervasive smell of motor oil, was no place for dreams. Her father, Jesse Ballard, a Ford assembly line worker, came home each night with blackened hands and a weary face, too drained to hug his kids. Her mother, Lurley Wilson, hunched over sewing for neighbors, each stitch a fragile thread holding the family together. Money was never enough. Meals were dry bread with a smear of corn syrup, and Florence, small and frail, quickly learned to stay quiet when her stomach growled. Poverty clung to the Ballards like an unrelenting shadow. In the winter of 1945, as biting winds tore through Detroit, the family crammed their belongings into an old truck and left Brewster Douglas for a cramped apartment in Black Bottom. The new place, barely warmer, echoed with car horns and rumbling trains. Florence, just 2, clutched her tattered doll, her big round eyes staring at flickering streetlights, as if they hid secrets of a better world. By 1948, they moved again, this time to a dilapidated house near Hastings Street, where creaking wooden walls and drafts through cracks were constant. Each move was a knife to Florence's young heart, teaching her nothing lasts, not homes, not hope. Yet amid the hardship, a small flame flickered within her, waiting to ignite. That flame was her voice. In March 1949, at New Bethel Baptist Church, Florence stood on a shaky wooden platform, her dress patched together from her sister's old clothes, and sang, "His Eye is on the Sparrow." Her voice, clear and powerful, soared over the clunky organ, silencing the congregation. The pastor froze, stunned, while elderly women in the pews whispered, eyes shining, convinced this girl was touched by God. Florence felt the strength in her voice as if it could lift her off the cold floor, away from hungry nights. At elementary school, she became the star of assemblies, singing gospel songs that earned endless applause from teachers and classmates. But frequent moves stole lasting friendships, leaving her alone with her dreams. One October evening in 1947, in a freezing room, Florence overheard her parents arguing through thin walls. Her mother, voice breaking, asked her father how they'd pay rent. Her father, exhausted, said he was working himself to death. Huddled up, Florence clutched an old radio and played Billie Holiday's "Stormy Weather." Billie's haunting voice spoke for her, and in that moment, she dreamed of standing on a stage, singing to the world, escaping the cage of poverty and fights. That dream grew, a fragile shield against a harsh world, but it couldn't protect her from the wounds lying in wait. By 1959, Florence, now 16, was a striking young woman with a voice that could shake any room. She joined the Primetts with Mary Wilson, Diana Ross, and Betty McGlown, managed by Milton Jenkins. Her warm, vibrant voice made the group stand out. In November 1959, at Detroit's 20 Grand Club, Florence led "There Goes My Baby." Her voice echoed, bringing the crowd to their feet, clapping like thunder. Under the stage lights, Florence felt her dream of stardom wasn't far off. It was right in front of her. But fate, cruel and unforgiving, had set a trap. One August night in 1959, after a Primetts performance at the Paradise Club, Florence walked down familiar John R. Street, still buzzing from the applause. In a dark alley near her home, a young man, someone she'd seen lurking at the corner store, tossing casual hellos, lunged at her. Before she could react, he attacked, turning a few short minutes into an eternal nightmare. Florence stumbled home, trembling, her soul shattered. She buried the pain, too ashamed to tell her mother, siblings, or even Mary. That secret, like poison, quietly ate away at her heart. The nights that followed became a living hell. For a month, Florence curled up in her tiny room, streetlights casting shadows through the window, reminding her of that terrifying alley. Every noise, every stranger's step made her heart pound, her mind replaying the horror. She avoided empty streets, flinched at accidental touches, and grew wary of strangers. On stage, she poured her pain into her voice, making it deeper, more haunting, but her eyes lost their carefree spark. Florence's smile became a thin mask, hiding a wound that would never heal. Her silence only deepened the pain, paving the way for greater tragedies. The Primetts' journey continued, despite the storm raging in Florence's heart. In January 1961, they signed with Motown Records, renaming themselves the Supremes. Florence's voice, a cornerstone of the group, propelled them forward. By October 1963, when the love light starts shining through his eyes, blared on radios nationwide, bringing the taste of fame Florence craved. She stood on stage, her blonde hair gleaming under the lights, believing she was escaping her past. But cracks were already forming. In April 1962, during a Motown meeting, Florence eagerly pitched a song she'd written, pouring her heart into the idea. Berry Gordy, Motown's boss, dismissed it outright, declaring Diana Ross the group's centerpiece. Florence bit her lip, feeling like she'd been doused with ice water. She sensed Gordy's favoritism toward Diana, hinting at something deeper than a business partnership, a quiet but growing threat. That blow left a festering wound. By late 1963, Florence noticed Diana's voice dominating recordings, while hers was relegated to the background. One December night, in her small room, she played a Supremes tape, straining to hear herself amid the melodies. Hearing nothing but Diana, she angrily switched it off, muttering that they were trying to erase her. The dream that once lifted her from poverty now felt like a trap, tightening with every step. The stage, once her paradise, was turning into a battlefield, and Florence, still haunted by that alley, had no idea how much darker the road ahead would be. In 1964, the Supremes' fame exploded, but for Florence Ballard, it marked the start of a new nightmare. In March 1964, Berry Gordy, with a cold stare and emotionless tone, announced Diana Ross would be the lead singer. The decision was a dagger to Florence's ambitions. She'd laid the foundation for the Primetts. Her powerful voice had driven crowds wild, yet now she was demoted to backup, a faint shadow behind Diana. In Motown's meeting room, Florence gripped her hands until they turned white, fighting back rage. She wanted to scream, to demand why her talent was being trampled, but Gordy's icy gaze silenced her. From that moment, the stage, once her shining domain, became a dazzling cage. In August 1964, at New York's Apollo Theater, the Supremes performed Baby Love, a hit sweeping the nation. The crowd roared, chanting Diana's name, while Florence, standing in the back, cried silently, lost in the cheers. She stood frozen under blinding lights, her eyes blurred, feeling the world turn its back. Backstage, in the dressing room, Florence sat huddled, tears streaming down her face. Mary Wilson, with a pained look, quietly held her hand, but that touch couldn't erase the hurt. Florence felt like a discarded object, a star snuffed out before it could shine. Tensions within the group grew stark. In June 1966, during a Motown rehearsal, Florence snapped when Diana kept cutting her off, dictating everything as if she were the only one who mattered. Florence, her anger erupting, shouted why everything always revolved around Diana. Diana, voice like ice, replied it was for the group's success. The air grew thick, forcing Smokey Robinson, their coach, to step in and calm them. But the rift was too deep. Florence, once the soul of the Primetts, now felt like an outsider, trapped in her own dream. The press caught wind of trouble. Rumors of discord in the Supremes spread, and Florence, her heart scarred, became the focus of whispers. In March 1967, at a Chicago show, she deliberately sang louder than her part in You Can't Hurry Love, a desperate bid to reclaim her stolen light. Diana, on stage, shot her a glare sharp as a blade. Backstage, a fiery argument erupted, Florence's voice trembling with frustration as she accused Diana of controlling the group. Diana, equally fierce, snapped that Florence needed to accept her place. In her rage, Florence slammed the dressing room door as if declaring war. The pressure crushed Florence, and she sought escape from Diana's shadow. One October night in 1966, in her small Detroit apartment, she sat writing a song, pouring her pain of being forgotten into every word. With fierce hope, she sent it to Motown, only to get a curt rejection from Gordy, saying it wasn't suitable. It felt like a slap. The idea of a solo career sparked, but her Supremes contract and Motown's iron grip chained her. She began drinking just to dull the ache. One December night in 1966, Mary Wilson found Florence staring blankly out a window, muttering she was just a shadow, helpless against the injustice. Alcohol became Florence's dangerous friend. It numbed Gordy's dismissive looks, Diana's overpowering voice, and the haunting memory of that alley. But it also devoured her, bit by bit. She started showing up late to rehearsals, sometimes reeking of liquor. Gordy, with a predator's eye, noted every misstep, biding his time. Florence, though aware she was spiraling, couldn't stop. She felt the world was against her, and alcohol was the only thing listening. In July 1967, the final storm hit. On the afternoon of July 22nd, in a stifling meeting room at Motown's West Grand Boulevard headquarters in Detroit, Florence faced Berry Gordy. He declared she was out. Cindy Birdsong would replace her in the Supremes. The reasons? Unprofessionalism, tardiness, and occasional drunkenness. But Florence knew the truth. Gordy wanted Diana as the sole star, and she was in the way. She slammed her hand on the table, yelling that she'd built this group, that they couldn't toss her like garbage. Gordy merely smirked, his eyes unmoved. Diana, sitting a few chairs away, looked away, offering no defense. A week later, on July 29th, at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, Florence took the stage with the Supremes for the last time. She sang You Keep Me Hangin' On, pouring her fury into every note, her voice cracking at the climax. The crowd cheered wildly, unaware it was her farewell. Backstage, Florence tore apart a bouquet from the label, hurling it into a corner, feeling they'd stolen her dream. The news spread fast, dividing fans. Some blamed her alcoholism, but many raged at Motown, calling it a cruel betrayal. In Detroit bars for days after, loyal fans cursed Motown for turning on Blondie, Florence's affectionate nickname. But it changed nothing. Florence was sidelined, left with a broken heart and a bleak future. In November 1967, Florence moved into a small house on Buena Vista Street, Detroit. Peeling walls, creaky windows rattling in the wind, and the stench of mildew marked her fall from glory. With no Motown income, she relied on welfare, sometimes lining up at dawn for free groceries at a charity center. The house, with the roar of trucks from I-75, was a cruel reminder of all she'd lost. Florence, who once shook stages, now huddled in a cold room, staring out at the street, wondering why fate was so harsh. Alcohol was now her only crutch. Florence often sat alone in her apartment, empty gin bottles scattered on the floor. Streetlights cast shadows across her gaunt face, no trace left of the girl who'd captivated crowds. She told herself one chance could bring it all back. But deep down, she knew that chance was slipping away, like stage lights fading at the end of a show. Florence, her heart scarred, was sliding into darkness, and no one but her could pull her back. In February 1968, Florence Ballard embarked on a new chapter with Fragile Hope. On February 14th, she married Tommy Chapman, a Motown stagehand, in a simple ceremony at St. Paul A.M. Church in Detroit. Her wedding dress hugged her slender frame, and for a moment, she believed Tommy would be her anchor, the light to guide her from the darkness after Motown's rejection. She smiled, trying to bury old wounds, but that happiness was too delicate. During their honeymoon, with Tommy's support, Florence poured her heart into a new opportunity. In April 1968, she signed with ABC Records, entering the studio with a hunger to be reborn. On June 15, 1968, she recorded "It Doesn't Matter How I Say It," singing with all her pain and hope, as if each note could erase the years of being forgotten. But ABC, strapped for cash, barely promoted the single. Florence was furious when they promised a comeback, but let her sink. Her manager criticized, just shrugged, saying the market had shifted. The dream began to crack. Tommy aspired to manage her but lacked the skills or connections to lift Florence back to the top. Arguments flared in their cramped apartment. Just 6 months after the wedding, Florence threw a stack of papers on the table, accusing Tommy of promising help but only piling on debt. Tommy, fed up, stormed out, leaving their daughter's cries echoing, ignoring them. Pain piled on pain. Her solo album, slated for March 1969, was scrapped after the single flopped. Critics praised her voice but said Florence's style didn't fit the rising disco wave. They compared her to Diana Ross, who was dominating with "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," rubbing salt in old wounds. The ABC failure was the final blow, extinguishing her spark, leaving Florence in a void of self-doubt and isolation. She cut ties with most former colleagues, except Mary Wilson. In October 1969, Smokey Robinson called, offering help, but Florence hung up. She knew they weren't sincere, just wanting her to fade into the background again. Mary, with rare loyalty, kept in touch, but Florence, her heart in pieces, grew more withdrawn. She felt like a discarded statue, now just rubble. Alcohol, her deadly companion, clung tighter. Florence's isolation spread to her family. In January 1970, she sat in her tiny Buena Vista kitchen, watching her 3 daughters eat dry bread with a dab of peanut butter. The house, with its dripping faucet and mildew stench, mirrored her decline. When her mother Lurley visited in March 1970 with a bag of groceries, Florence, voice shaking, pushed her out, saying she didn't need charity, that she could manage. Lurley left, tears streaming, unaware Florence was hiding her collapse. She feared pity, dreaded being seen as a failure, and that pride only left her lonelier. Her ties with siblings frayed. One August night in 1971, at a family gathering at her sister Maxine's, her brother Jesse scolded Florence for shutting everyone out, saying she was once their pride, but now a stranger. Florence, eyes red from drink, walked out without a word. She refused to share her struggles, letting misunderstandings pile up. The press then painted her as a reclusive ghost, further tarnishing her public image. Her family, once her rock, became distant shadows, leaving her alone in a cold house. In April 1971, Florence resolved to seek justice. She walked into a lawyer's office in downtown Detroit, signing a lawsuit against Motown, accusing them of withholding royalties from the Supremes' hits and ousting her to favor Diana Ross. She demanded $100,000 and recognition as the group's founder. Her hands shook as she recalled Gordy's dismissals, the sting of betrayal tearing at her. The lawsuit drew media and fan attention. Some backed Florence, calling her Gordy's victim, but Motown spread claims she was bitter and unreliable, drowning her in their media might. Florence publicly blasted Gordy, calling him a manipulator in an August 1971 Ebony interview, alienating many Motown peers. Smokey Robinson called, urging her to stop, but Florence slammed the phone down, tears falling, feeling the world didn't understand her plight. Motown's legal team crushed her. On March 22, 1972, she received a measly $5,000 settlement, a laughable sum, barely covering medical bills or child support. The lawsuit's failure severed any chance of a Motown reunion, leaving her in solitude and bitterness. The strain of raising kids and mounting debt weighed on Florence like boulders. She and Tommy fought constantly, each word a blade to the other's heart. One September afternoon in 1972, neighbors heard screams from the Chapman home. Florence, drunk, hurled a porcelain plate at Tommy, accusing him of stealing her earnings from a small gig. Tommy, at his limit, snapped that she was destroying herself without remorse. Ebony ran a story on the Supreme Stars family feud, further tarnishing Florence's image. By July 1973, Tommy, unable to endure the hopeless marriage, left, abandoning Florence with 3 kids and an empty house. She held her daughters, crying nightly. She didn't want them seeing their mother like this, but she lacked the strength to change, and the house, once a symbol of hope, became a cold cage. In October 1973, Florence, clinging to hope for her kids, reached out to Mary Wilson, suggesting a small performance together. Mary, sympathetic, said Motown wouldn't allow it, that Gordy wanted no trouble. Bound by contract, Mary couldn't be blamed. Florence later learned from a friend that Gordy had banned her from any Supremes appearance at all costs. Her dream of returning to the stage was dead. This defeat, like a final stab, plunged Florence into depression and alcohol's grip, where no light remained. By 1974, Florence Ballard, now a shadow of herself, lived in her small Buena Vista home, where mildew and I-75 truck roars constantly reminded her of her fall. Raising 3 daughters, Michelle, Nicole, and Lisa, alone, she was exhausted physically and mentally. She relied on welfare and occasional aid from Mary Wilson, who sent money and food baskets. She still hoped to rebuild, but her weary body and scarred heart said otherwise. Alcohol, her toxic ally, clung tight, each sip a fleeting balm for pain, but it dragged her deeper. Florence's health crumbled gravely. One January morning in 1975, she woke to searing chest pain, her heart racing erratically. She collapsed on the kitchen floor, gasping, sweat pouring. With no money for a doctor or insurance, she clutched her chest, telling herself it would pass. But the pain persisted, a warning her body was surrendering after years of alcohol and stress. She hid it from her kids, fearing their worried eyes. But at night, as Michelle, Nicole, and Lisa slept, she lay awake, clutching her chest in dread, sensing death lurking outside her window. Soon after, an unexpected glimmer of hope appeared through a mishap. On March 15, 1975, on a rain-slicked road in East Detroit, Florence drove her rickety car home from grocery shopping. A truck cut her off, forcing her to crash into the curb. Glass shattered, metal crunched, but miraculously, Florence escaped with only bruises and minor shock. At Harper Hospital, doctors confirmed no serious injuries, but the accident brought a windfall. The insurance company agreed to pay $35,000, a fortune to Florence then. With that money, Florence bought a modest but tidier house on Outer Drive in May. The red brick home, with a front yard of daisies, symbolized a fresh start. Its simple interior, a worn sofa, a scratched wooden dining table, a few family photos on the walls, was paradise to Florence. One June evening in 1975, after moving in, she sat in the living room, hugging her daughters, promising she'd rebuild, that she'd sing again. She began dreaming of a new album, even contacting a local producer to discuss plans. In a July 20, 1975, Detroit News interview, Florence declared music still ran in her veins, that she hadn't given up. But her haggard appearance in the paper, sunken eyes, frail voice, made readers doubt Blondie of the Supremes had any light left. And as feared, that hope quickly faded. Florence's health, ravaged by years of alcoholism and heart disease, wouldn't let her chase her dream. She resumed vocal practice in her living room, but often stopped, gasping for air, clutching her chest, sweat beading. The insurance money, once a lifeline, brought only fleeting joy before darkness returned. She declined small gig offers, not from pride, but because her body couldn't handle the strain. Every step, every breath felt like a battle. In November 1975, Florence made a haunting final stage appearance. On November 8th, she stepped onto the Fox Theater stage in Detroit for a charity event aiding struggling local artists. The crowd, mostly neighbors and old fans, cheered Blondie with bittersweet warmth. Florence sang "Someday We'll Be Together" and "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." her voice still soulful but weaker, occasionally off-key. The audience clapped fervently, but their eyes betrayed sadness, watching her move sluggishly, her face gaunt. The Detroit Free Press called her a star gone dim. After the show, Florence sat in the dressing room, hearing murmurs outside about pity, about how radiant she once was. She pressed her lips tight, head bowed, tears falling, shame burning like fire. The performance sparked a few offers, but Florence couldn't follow through. Chest pain kept her bedridden. She retreated into seclusion again. That show became her career's final note, leaving the image of a talent crushed by circumstance. By January 1976, the joy from her last hope had vanished. Diagnosed with heart disease and high blood pressure, she couldn't afford medicine or doctors. She hid her condition to spare her kids worry, but nightly chest pain and shortness of breath kept her awake, feeling darkness swallow her. Late on February 21, 1976, Florence felt chest pain worse than ever. She called a neighbor, desperate for help, but no one answered. Early on February 22nd, a neighbor checking on the kids found her collapsed on the living room floor, barely breathing. An ambulance rushed her to Sinai Grace Hospital, but doctors could do nothing. Florence died at 10 a.m. from coronary thrombosis, the result of years of alcoholism and stress. The news stunned Detroit. Her death, like a final cut, closed a tragic chapter behind the glamour, leaving an unfillable void. On February 25, 1976, Florence's funeral was held at New Bethel Baptist Church, where she'd sung as a child. Hundreds of fans lined up in drizzling rain to say goodbye. Her death not only ended her life, but sparked a new wave of debate and regret. Her mother, Lurlee, clung to the casket, sobbing, saying if she'd tried harder, her daughter might not have suffered so alone. Florence's siblings stood silently in a corner, eyes heavy with remorse for years of distance. The Detroit Free Press called the funeral a belated farewell to a forgotten talent. Her past was unearthed. A Jet magazine article revealed the 1959 assault Florence endured, shocking and stirring public sympathy, showing she was a victim of a cruel world, deserving of love and protection. Whispers spread through Detroit streets. People said if Motown had been fair, if someone had listened, Florence might not have died at 32. But the tragedy didn't end there. Florence left no will, and her outer drive home, her most valuable asset, worth about $50,000, became a battleground. On March 1, 1976, Tommy Chapman, her ex-husband, appeared at a lawyer's office, demanding control of the estate for their daughters, Michelle, Nicole, and Lisa. The Ballards, led by Lurlee, fiercely opposed him, arguing Tommy abandoned Florence when she needed him most, that he had no right to her legacy. Lurlee insisted the house was Florence's final effort to give her girls a better life, and no one should steal it. The dispute, though brief, deepened family rifts. In April 1976, the court awarded the house to the daughters under Lurlee's guardianship, but no one felt victorious. The house's value couldn't ease the pain or replace what was lost. The outer drive home, once a beacon of hope, lost its meaning after Florence's death. The Ballards struggled financially and couldn't maintain it. One October morning in 1977, Lurlee stood before the house, staring at its rusted fence, and decided to sell. By March 1978, it was sold for about $45,000 to a local family. The money supported Florence's daughters, but it wasn't enough to transform their lives. By 2025, the house's value might have reached $250,000, but it bears no trace of Florence. Some fans on online forums lament that it should have been a monument, not just another anonymous Detroit home. In 1981, Florence's story was revived through the musical Dreamgirls, inspired by her life. Audiences left theaters in tears, recognizing Effie White as Florence, a betrayed and forgotten talent. The show highlighted the injustices she faced, from Motown's favoritism to her isolation after being ousted. Some viewers, moved, claimed Florence would be proud if she'd lived to see her story told. But most felt only sorrow, knowing fame meant nothing to the dead. In 1986, Mary Wilson's memoir, Dream Girl, My Life as a Supreme offered deeper insight into Florence. Mary confirmed the tension between Florence and Berry Gordy, detailing how Gordy sidelined her to elevate Diana Ross. She wrote that Florence never wanted enemies, only to sing. Mary also revealed Florence's desperate wish to reunite in 1972-1973, calling and writing, begging for a chance to return. Those pages left readers aching for a woman who fought to her last breath against a merciless fate. Mary's book, like a small candle, illuminated Florence's legacy, but deepened the pain of an unfinished dream. In 1988, the Supremes were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Florence Ballard's name was honored with reverence. Mary Wilson, representing the group, declared Florence its soul, saying without her, they wouldn't exist. Florence's voice, part of 16 top 40 singles, including 10 #1 hits like Where Did Our Love Go and Stop in the Name of Love, echoes through time. But Florence wasn't there to see it, and the moment was both triumph and tragedy for her admirers. Fans in the audience felt she deserved honor in life, that the world owed her an apology. Beyond numbers, Florence's legacy endures. Her energetic performance style and warm voice inspired later artists. Mary J. Blige, in a 1995 interview, said she learned to pour her heart into every note from Florence. She also shaped the modern girl group, blending talent, style, and stage charisma. One September evening in 2010, an unsung episode about Florence left viewers across America in tears, hearing of the outer drive home, a symbol of resilience, but also a reminder of a shattered dream. In 2025, Florence's story remains alive. The Outer Drive house, though owned by others, is a sacred memory. Her musical legacy, from timeless songs to her tale of resilience, burns eternal. A girl from Brewster, Douglas, slums rose to shake the world, only to be pulled down by cruel fate. Yet, even in darkness, her voice resounds, declaring that talent never dies, no matter how buried. Florence Ballard, with all her pain and glory, left an indelible mark, a story that ensures Blondie will never fade.